Well, ladies and gentlemen, here we go again. We got more information regarding Ubisoft and their upcoming release of Assassin's Creed Shadows. Now, as you guys are aware, this game was just recently delayed from February, Black History Month, to March 20th of 2025 because Ubisoft wanted to celebrate Japan's worst terrorist attack in history, so they made sure to release their game that's going to show utmost respect to Japan on the 20th of March. But with that being said, apparently they're so desperate to avoid yet another Star Wars Outlaw situation that they're doing everything they possibly can to make sure that Assassin's Creed Shadows is going to be released without a hitch.
I ain't no gay, don't twist it that way. Ain't no hero who saved the Naga City.
Now, again, ladies and gentlemen, what does that mean? Well, quite frankly, Star Wars Outlaws was such a massive failure that this video game not only was getting hated on by players, but to be honest with you, was also just an absolute buggy mess. Even if people wanted to avoid the conversation of DEI and what they did to Kay Vess and how they made her unbelievably ugly compared to her actual actress, all of that doesn't matter because when they booted up the game, they got greeted by the buggiest piece of crap that has released recently by Ubisoft. Ubisoft decided to release Star Wars Outlaws well before it was done, to the point where now they've released patches that damn near changed the game in its entirety. It's supposed to be a stealth-oriented game, and they've basically minimalized or removed most of the stealth elements because it was such a bad element in the game and players hated it. They basically changed the entire core game, not only just a few patches after release, but with all that being said, the game was an absolute buggy mess, and Assassin's Creed Shadows was going to follow in their footsteps. They don't want to do this anymore because the negative press is just too loud, and they're trying to do everything to quell the eventual storm. So let's get into this article, guys, from Phantom Post. But of course, before we do, if you are new here, just consider hitting that subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it, and like the video to push us out into that YouTube algorithm. So, a new rumor alleges that Ubisoft is desperate to avoid another Star Wars Outlaws with Assassin's Creed Shadows. This rumor comes from Grubbs over on X, and he shares Ubisoft is desperate to avoid another Star Wars Outlaws. They fear that YouTube reaction on Assassin's Creed Shadows. He added, sources tell me they are putting a tremendous amount of time into polish and bug fixes for the smoothest possible launch. Now, I don't believe this. I'm sorry. I really don't. And there's a couple of reasons why. The main reason why is because Ubisoft as a company has proven to us through a multitude of different releases well before Star Wars Outlaws that this is not a company that cares about quality. They're just not. They're a company that would rather release the game first and fix it later. There's only so many things they're going to be able to do to get the game ready. There's only so much you're going to be able to fix within 1 month's time before you got to get the game ready for a release. That at this point, I do not believe that that is what you're doing. In my opinion, Ubisoft is stalling for time. They are trying to find a way to minimize Yasuke as much as possible so when the game releases, it can focus on Naoe. And the game focusing on Naoe, they can say, well, look, we're respecting Japan. We made Naoe the main character, and Yasuke is essentially a side character at this point, and not the main character that we were pushing him to be for the last few months now. They're trying to do everything they can to change up the story, in my opinion. That's what they're trying to do. But their public PR speak is that they're trying to fix the game. They're trying to make sure it's not buggy. They're trying to make sure it releases as smooth as possible. I'm telling you right now, this game has a high likelihood of still releasing absolutely buggy, even with all the supposed extra time to polish the game, because they even admitted that they're putting in changes into the game that is based on player feedback. How are you fixing bugs and whatnot when you're supposedly adding changes to the game as well? You can't do both in the very little bit of time that you have, especially when your team is already spread thin as it is. It's just not possible. But anyway, current claims come in the wake of Warhorse Studios creative director Dan Vavra revealing on Czech YouTube channel Vox News that large video game developers are terrified of YouTubers like Critical Drinker and Asmongold. Now, we went over this on Hypnocast. I didn't make a video about it specifically, but a lot of developers got together on a podcast, and one of them, who works for Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, he came out and admitted that people, they're scared. They are actually scared of the bigger YouTubers or YouTubers in general that have such a massive fan base, that have such the ability to be able to tell their fans exactly what's going on, to provide them with a level of transparency that they don't want to provide them with. They have the ability to do this, and it terrifies them. It really does, because now they don't have control over the narrative anymore. Remember, these studios used to have control over the journalists. The journalists would chill for the studios, and the studios would control the journalists. Now you don't have that anymore. Now you got to be desperate and hope that there are some YouTubers out there that you can allow to become shills. Now, granted, it's nowhere near as much as Access Media, but the YouTubers are in fact partaking in that as well. There is still Access Media being done on the YouTube side. It's just not talked about as much as gaming journalism, right? It's just not as much. But it's going to get to the point where it is going to be the new Access Media. Certain YouTubers are going to be the new Access Media. They're going to do everything they can to try to get on the good side of these developers. There's already some that are doing it. You guys already know who they are. And there's going to be more of them because there are people out there that cannot be successful on their own accord. And they're doing everything they can to try to get mainstream industry behind them, because that way they can view themselves as successful, even though their views and their numbers don't showcase that at all. But then, as translated by Reddit user Prezak Vavra, said, listen, I've heard that there are big developers and companies really scared of what they call hate tubers, let's say. The kind of guys who started criticizing Critical Drinker, Asmongold, and others who started criticizing big companies. He continued, and I thought it was so niche. Okay, he's Asmon. He's got like a few million followers. His videos have some impact, but it's definitely not what everybody is watching. Well, I wouldn't say that. There's a lot more people watching Asmongold than there are reading games journalism. You know what I mean? Like there is way more people watching Asmongold than Critical Drinker than these journalists can even hope to get as a fan base. I guarantee you one YouTuber has a bigger fan base than the entirety of gaming journalism combined. I guarantee you. It is not even close. However, he then noted, and now I found out from some people that companies are really terrified of them and it's really having an impact. That's when somebody starts to critique the game in the corporate world, that it does have an impact. From there, Vavra shared his own criticism of AAA studios and how they react to criticism by Asmongold, Critical Trigger, and others, as it's unsustainable how these corporations do it, considering that they've now made games that nobody wanted, and they even said that when those gamers started complaining that they didn't like it and they didn't want that kind of game, and the developers started telling them that they were stupid and that it wasn't a game for them, which is completely bizarre, that you're insulting your own customers. Exactly. That's what we've been saying since the beginning. It's all we've been saying. Whenever somebody says, oh, you guys have a political agenda. No, we don't. We are simply telling you the issues that we have with the game and whether or not you want to address it or not. Maybe we can find a happy medium, but you guys don't want to do that. The developers, quite frankly, are just so busy being, completely like their heads are in the sand. And they refuse to listen to what we have to say. They're very quickly to call us racist, bigoted, and misogynist before actually listening and taking in our feedback and saying, you know what? We'll see what we could do. They're not going to do that. They're absolutely not going to do that. So I'm glad that the Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 developers said this, because it is true. And it is 100% true that the developers are starting to notice people who are on YouTube, because quite frankly, there is nobody else, right? The gaming journalism, that is dying, right? There's very few and far between supposed Access Media mainstream journalists that are left. And then the people who are doing alternative media, they're growing little by little, but it's nowhere near the same as YouTubers. YouTubers are absolutely in control of the narrative now. We are 100% in control of the information. And at this point, if they don't want to work with us, then it's going to be a very interesting next couple of years. That's all I really got to say. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you did enjoy it. If you did, consider leaving me a subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Don't forget to like the video, comment, let me know what you thought, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Hypnotic out.